Hello, everyone. This is Stefan Loha from the ETC core team, and I want to welcome you guys to the EVM61 podcast. And we have a really special guest today, who is Viktor Tron, who is the Swarm team. He's the Swarm team lead and the author of the book of Swarm. And Viktor, thank you for coming on, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, Stefan. Thank you for inviting me to the show. I mean, indeed, I've been with the Swarm project since the early days of Ethereum, so I'm happy to talk about this with you, because it's very special times for Swarm. Things are becoming ripe and mature, ready for production use soon.
Right, and to my knowledge, Swarm just released its alpha release. But before we get into that, there might be some people who might not know what Swarm is. So maybe we could briefly, just briefly tell us, what is Swarm trying to solve?
Yeah, so Swarm is usually mentioned under the rubric of decentralized storage solution. It was originally conceived of by the founders of Ethereum as part of the so-called Holy Trinity, which basically realizes the so-called word computer. It was when Ethereum came to being. Ethereum, the blockchain, was realized as the kind of, the best analogy would be that it's a secure global computation layer. So you can conceive of it as the CPU of the word computer. And in order to realize a fully global computational environment, you need storage and messaging, basically, to complete it and make it a viable backend for the is thought of the backend of the decentralized internet. And beside the CPU that blockchain realizes, you need the storage component and messaging. And since then, a lot of time has passed, and priorities of the foundation and other entities kind of shifted. But Swarm took on a kind of a little bit more ambitious goal of basically completing this vision of the word computer. And apart from solving decentralized storage, and we have a very strong solution for messaging, or basically real-time data transfer. It's kind of aspires to be the backend for the World Wide Web. What this means is actually aspires to provide a whole tool set, the primitives that define a web stack to build decentralized applications on.
That's pretty awesome. And I think, and as someone who's been involved in the Ethereum ecosystem too, I remember first knowing what Swarm was, and around the last few years too, we've had so many decentralized projects come up. And honestly, Swarm, Swarm is really the one that is like the first one to really deliver and actually have something that's ready to use. So I think a lot of people, when they think about all these other decentralized projects, like literally Swarm is the kind of, you guys are basically the leader in your alpha launch. Because I remember I've also ran a node on Swarm, and I'm like, wow, this like P2P storage it's here, it's working. And that's pretty exciting. And as far as where you guys evolved, you said you took a more ambitious goal. I feel like
to be told, of course, there's difference between working and working, because as a decentralized solution, obviously the most important ingredient to have is to have the economic incentives that make such a network kind of self-running or so-called economically self-sustaining. And that's why there's a big difference in the kind of a working product that works on the basis of the altruism of its users, and the solution which really runs with the incentives on real crypto, and basically running the incentives on a token or something that's like a tangible value, and like a cryptocurrency. That makes a huge difference, and that's what's gonna be the difference when we release Swarm 1.2. That's basically means that we gonna have a mainnet launch of the incentive system. That's gonna be real money.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. And I remember like when I'm exploring the community chats and stuff, I see a lot of people who they're super excited just because it's also it's an incentive. Well, the goal is to have an incentivized decentralized storage network or solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as economic viability, like I think that's awesome because I've participated in some of these decentralized storage projects or these storage blockchains, and
Mm-hmm.
or not necessarily blockchains, but other P2P systems. And
Yeah.
I guess like people aren't that excited, or it's not too vibrant. But where I see people getting excited about Swarm, it gives me a lot of hope that there's gonna be I don't know, I like the swarm and the bees. Like I feel like there's gonna be a swarm of people that are excited to participate in this ecosystem. And as far as contributing to this greater internet of value, I think where you guys are going, I think it's super exciting.
Yeah.
As far as now you mentioned that, so the Swarm Alpha launch is up, but you're gonna have another Swarm version that's gonna have the mainnet, that's gonna have the incentive mechanism. I guess we can say like, what are some challenges that that you might notice, or maybe you're trying to solve with decentralized storage as a whole, or what are some main challenges?
I mean, the main challenge is in general in decentralized and decentralizing of peer-to-peer versions of technologies is in general to keep the nodes kind of honest, in a way that the emerging behavior of the network that basically determines how users can interact with it and what service it can bring to users is directly driven by the individuals. So even though you provide a client, the clients can be hacked, the certain strategies and certain configurations can be changed. And it's very easy to run into a problem where certain properties of the network are exploited by others. And even though maybe the functionality is maintained by the majority of well-intentioned participants, we don't want it to be exploitable, and especially not to the extent that maybe the services and the promise of what the network delivers become compromised, like it happens with for example with BitTorrent. Even though BitTorrent is an amazing invention and an amazing product, there's various ways to exploit it, and various weaknesses in which kind of users suffer in terms of quality of service they get. And if you get the incentive system right, then it makes a whole world of difference with this. So I would say that this is one of the major challenges, especially that incentives have to be approached from various angles. So basically, incentives are there to provide a way to optimize the allocation of resources by the participant. What resources are we talking about here? And basically bandwidth and storage or disk space. And while the distribution and resource allocation of bandwidths is, I'm not saying it's easy to incentivize, because there's a lot of details. The devil is always in the details, but it's relatively straightforward in the sense that when you get messages and when your peer is sharing bandwidth with you in terms of like helping passing your message towards the system, it's kind of something that's of instant gratification. You know that it's done, so you can do some sort of payment or some compensation with it, or just do some accounting with your peer. However, with storage incentives, it's a whole different story, because storage incentive is promissory in nature, which means that the moment of truth only comes in the future. And of course, you cannot afford a simple solution that you only pay in the future, because those nodes that store your stuff already allocating resources and using their storage space. So there's a bit of a time problem here. If you pay early, you might realize that they don't do the job properly. If you pay late, then storers might end up being dried of their resources without any compensation. So there has to be a clever scheme which kind of compensates nodes in a clever way. And of course, it's not so easy to orchestrate this in a kind of flexible, simple, and kind of correct and fair fashion. So that constituted the biggest challenge that took us years to figure out properly.
That's cool. And definitely, I know, like, just in any distributed network in general, just honest nodes is such a big importance just to keep the integrity of the network. But as far as and I know Swarm's providing like basically a decentralized storage, but it's also, it's you guys, you've been around Ethereum. As far as interoperability and use cases and other capabilities with Ethereum's use cases, are there any particular Ethereum Swarm use cases or capabilities that maybe that Swarm is trying to aspire to or make available?
You mean that means that there's kind of distinguishing feature in a sense, you mean?
Right. Yeah. If it is the distinguishing feature, is Ethereum Swarm expanding Ethereum capabilities, and if you could explain how so.
In that sense, yes. So first of all, it almost sounds a bit boring when you say decentralized storage compared to what it actually enables, because what we're talking about here is a proper alternative for the World Wide Web. What it means is that it provides for URL-based addressing, which means that you can deploy whole websites and kind of all that you need for a real-time interactive web application and serve it through Swarm, which means that the long-awaited real use cases for the blockchain that people have been talking about for years and people were so excited about. I'm talking about the decentralized. I mean, just to mention the variants of already existing Web2 services, which would be much more beneficial to users in a Web3 decentralized setting. Talking about the decentralized Uber, the decentralized Airbnb, the flight aggregators, the restaurant listings like Just Eat. I'm talking about the eBays, and etc. of the decentralized world. All these become suddenly possible because with the blockchain, although the business logic was provided by the blockchain, and having decentralized consensus or single source of truth solutions in decentralized way, this is a major game changer, and that's why the blockchain is really a major civilizational accomplishment. But in order to properly realize the whole shebang of an application that has its business logic on the blockchain, you really need something like some layers that handle storage, that handle messaging, that handle authentication, access control, and all the stuff. And Swarm is aspiring to provide all these layers, and in a modular and quite principled and relatively elegant fashion, I would say.
So it's kind of I guess you could say it's kind of extending. I don't know, because like when I think about when building a decentralized application, right, I have to like build the website and everything out, and then
Yes.
whatever this application is, hypothetically, you can use Swarm to host that decentralized application. Let's say your decentralized application has like business logic or, like you said, messages. Okay, well, Swarm could help store and transfer that data too.
Yes.
And then hypothetically, even when I'm not sure, like, can we even include the actual smart contracts themselves within being hosted on Swarm?
Okay, I mean, so there's already a use case for that. That the Solidity team has built like a Swarm-based source code verification solution. So basically, the source code for the EVM contract is checked against the hash, and the source code is provided persistence on Swarm. So that's a very good application. This contributes to added and strengthened solution for security of smart contract execution. So this is one use case, but obviously, as you say, the usability of a particular decentralized app really hinges on a lot of things other than the business logic. So, as you say, like, as simply as having a website that orchestrates the business logic, like think of something like the Uniswap service, etc. I mean, how sad it is that if you have the same kind of lousy security as on Web 2, basically you can create a phishing site. You can hack the site that runs the Web 3 blockchain backend. Then basically you're back to square one, because although the main logic of the financial transactions, of course, are really smart, and it's great. It's working well on the blockchain. However, the security is compromised by all the added layers of the front end and whatever interface you have, because you have to resort to Web 2 solutions and their compromised security. If you have Swarm, you can basically complete this vision that every single component of a web application is driven on the decentralized level, and it has a peer-to-peer solution, which is both permissionless, so it has a censorship-resistant property, which is very important, and second, it's unstoppable in the sense, or unstoppable or permanent in the sense that no entity can decide to take it off, because once it's there and it was working, it will always work. And these are very important properties.
That's pretty cool. That's actually very exciting. And I know from our team too, like I think this whole Swarm event and the Book of Swarm is launched, and our whole dev team is all excited about it too. We're catching up, and as far as like when you say censorship resistance and the decentralization, I remember recently we had someone who experienced their website, like the host provider just took it down for some reason.
Yes.
And it was just because of an algorithm, and then the services that were connected to that also got taken down and were completely deleted, and they were providing certain microservices for a specific product, and we're like, was that legal? Like they just took down some infrastructure in our product, like but
Yeah.
and it was probably just company automation behind their hosting, whatever their hosting platform was. And when I think about Swarm, it's like, you get absolutely ownership. No one's gonna mess with your stuff as long as the Swarm network is up and running. You deploy, you connect, and you have absolute ownership.
Yes. So sovereignty, data sovereignty is one of the most important mottos on our banner, because we want to realize a kind of fair data society and contribute to it in a way that people are finally sovereign owners of their own data, and they are not victims, or they are not, let's say, exposed to the risks presented by these data silos that emerged during the years of Web 2, which is kind of a response to the infrastructural needs of people like to have elastic and automatically scaling hosting solutions, and big companies provided these for free, provided these with platforms which collected the data, and they ended up having a completely different business model in which the users ended up products themselves, and of course, and of course it made sense, and it allowed for rapid progress. However, we ended up with a kind of same situation where people are kind of and end up finding themselves in a lockdown situation, because they can't really afford moving their data. They don't have any alternative, just to keep on using these big companies' products, while the quality of these services generally deteriorate. I mean, think Gmail, Facebook, etc. Just because they are not really the users that are targeted by the by the company's interests. And in general, the big problem is that switching costs are pretty high, and especially in products which have kind of exposure to the network effect, where you have like social networks, etc. in place. They becoming the de facto the real problem of the current web. And Swarm is offering a solution and promises to be a viable alternative, where you can just imagine, just very shortly, the solution that Facebook or a social network is basically a library, that it's a bunch of automated applications and code running on the Swarm network, web apps that run on the Swarm network, that basically authorize access to that you hold in your own data wallet or personal data vault. It's a completely new paradigm.
That's pretty cool. And you know what, as far as data sovereignty in general, the tech industry, it's as far as the tech industry and the consumers, people are demanding that trust minimization,
Yes.
because you see a lot of competitors to Gmail that are maybe offering zero knowledge encryption and stuff. All those alternative services are in high demand. And when it comes to decentralized storage too, like I would love for Facebook to store my images on Swarm, and maybe I could only access those, because I mean, you say like, okay, maybe the consumers are demanding that, but what about the companies too? Because maybe because if companies are realizing, hey, this is what our users want, you know, what can we integrate into our product? Like I would love for, like I said, I remember I talked to other family members, and I tell them download your social media data and I look at the amount of photos they store on their servers. And then you realize that Twitter, I think just yesterday just got hacked. And it's like, what if Facebook got hacked? What if someone just stole all your family photos, all your confidential photos that you send people that are being hosted on these centralized servers that could clearly get compromised? If Twitter could get compromised, of course Facebook and other companies can get compromised.
You touched on a very important point. The more centralization you have, the more incentive you give to hackers to acquire value if they hack the system in one go. With Swarm, I'm not saying that the security is unhackable, especially not if you include like social engineering and all kinds of other methods. I mean, people are, I almost said stupid, but people are naive, and some of them are not very well trained in internet security. So these compromises will happen. However, with Swarm, when you are kind of data is under your control, and you're the keeper of your access control, even if you get compromised, no one else will. So that means that a hacker will very unlikely to be motivated to hack your particular access to your files, because they get very little out of that. So the cost benefit analysis kind of works in our favor. And
And I know because Swarm is a public network too, and when there's a bad actor, I don't know. I guess you could say the bees. If someone, if the intruder comes into the hive, like all the bees act accordingly. Because I remember when there's a malicious actor on a network, the whole market responds. Like I know if there's, let's say there's a big malicious Bitcoin hack or a certain user, like every Bitcoin provider would do everything in their power to be like, yeah, we're tracking that address. We're all responding in order. Here's the attacker, and like I guess an attacker, their effect becomes very worthless in the end, or when they affect that one person, it's usually just them, and if they try to do anything else, they're nearly disabled because I guess you say all the bees are surrounding them.
So with peer-to-peer networks, it's a very different security paradigm that you have to think in. So think about like, if you have a centralized solution that or a proprietary software or something, then it's very very different because you control the software that you run. However, in Swarm, the way we had to or architect this system is that every move in every protocol, every action that a node makes, has to be supported by some economic incentive or some sort of incentive which a rational actor is likely to follow. Because if it's not, and if diverting from the protocol is worthwhile and can be exploited, then it will. And therefore it's very important to underpin every action that the protocol declares as the right behavior to basically support it with some economic incentive, or the other way, diverging or doing different behavior than what the protocol prescribes should be costly or should be outright fatal in terms of losing a huge stake, or some sort of acting bad should have its punitive consequences. And that's a very different type of security design, and it's relatively new, but it's very very exciting.
That's pretty cool, and you know, there's, and I guess it is like like you said, a new paradigm. And I'm pretty excited for the mainnet release, and I definitely encourage everyone to check out the alpha release and try to get involved there. I guess Victor, is there the Swarm Alpha launch is live. You can say the bees have been released.
Yes.
For everyone listening, what would you recommend for them? How can they start getting involved in Swarm and participating?
So first of all, there's a possibility to download the client and simply be part of the network and help us debug and help us move forward by reporting your findings, trying it out, comment and give us feedback on the features, and watch out for improved releases and the additional features. That's one thing. We have very good documentation, so you can help with that or start with that and kind of get involved. And of course, a bit of shameless plug here. If you're interested in the kind of deep tech behind Swarm and the kind of architecture and design, then I recommend to read or to get into the book of Swarm, which is up on Swarm. Surprisingly, there's an old testnet which is the old feature-rich client, and this offers kind of this experimental prototype implementations of some of the more arcane or more high-level features of Swarm, including access control, feeds, etc., that are still being developed with the new client on the B network. And as soon as we got them sorted in a kind of leanest, cleanest possible way, then we're going to switch off this old testnet. But it's there for developers, interested developers, to try out those features. And how to get involved? Of course, you can get involved by following our blog posts and and come to later events. For example, when the beta launches, there's going to be very exciting events surrounding that milestone, and and yeah, enjoy and try to stress test and help us with the development that way. Of course, we are all Swarm, as we say. So Swarm is kind of already suggests some sort of collaborative engagement, which ends up realizing kind of more than the part of it. And in that spirit, we really encourage collaboration, and we have giving out Swarm grants to teams that build interesting applications on Swarm, or help us realize and implement an alternative core client, for example, or contribute to tooling. This is very important. So for developers, interested devs, and dev teams, this is a very, very good way to engage. But in any case, please come to our channels on Mattermost and have a conversation.
That's awesome. And we'll provide links to some of the stuff that Victor's mentioned and the description to this this episode. And Victor, I really appreciate you coming on. And
I really appreciate the opportunity, Stefan.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone listening, once again, check those links. And we are all Swarm.
Thank you very much.